everybody. Welcome to Diamond Secrets Revealed. Today I'm going to be talking about how to tell the difference between a real diamond and an imposter. So maybe you're doing some spring cleaning now that you have the time. Maybe you're discovering some jewelry you've lost or haven't worn in a long time. So how can you tell if the stones are real or if they're fake? My name is Jennifer Wyszynski. I am a GIA gemologist, jewelry designer, and appraiser, and I love to teach and talk about all the different gemstones, especially diamond. And this is April, and diamond is the birthstone for April. So I'm dedicating this whole month to doing Facebook Lives every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday at 11 a.m. And I'll be teaching you something different for each live. So you want to stay tuned and catch all of them or watch them in the replay if you didn't catch it. And I just want each of you to be well-informed and knowledgeable when we get out of this, to be able to make really great decisions when you start buying your diamond jewelry. Maybe now that you're together with your loved one, it will spark you to get that engagement ring, get married, or buy some more diamond jewelry. So as a gemologist, I've seen thousands upon thousands of diamonds, and I know the proper things to look for to tell the difference between real and fake. Usually I can see it across the room. But the average person, they don't really think about diamonds too often or spend time looking at them, right? Except for when it's time to buy one. So it's time to be prepared and learn all you need to know to be knowledgeable when shopping for something so personal and so valuable. So how does the everyday person tell if a clear stone is a real diamond or a simulant? Simulant, what does that mean? So a simulant is not the same as synthetic. You cannot use the two interchangeable. A simulant can be man-made or natural, and it just looks like the stone due to similar color or some other similar optical or visual characteristics. So something that you see. A synthetic, on the other hand, is man-made in a laboratory, and it has the same chemical makeup, or it has the same elements. So like carbon makes up diamond, so a synthetic will be made up of carbon. It has the same crystal structure. So diamond is cubic, so it will also be cubic. And it has the same optical or visual characteristics. So it will look the same optically, have the same brilliance, have the same luster to it, because it has the same hardness. So all of those physical and chemical properties are the same. It's just man-made. But a simulant just is a look-alike. So what might be some look-alikes to diamond? There is the popular cubic zirconia. There's synthetic moissanite, colorless topaz, rock crystal quartz or colorless quartz, colorless sapphire, and glass. So there used to be others, but they're just not popular anymore. So they stopped synthesizing them, or they just don't use them in jewelry. Here's a slide of some of the stones that I'm going to be talking about. So there's quartz, there's sapphire, the colorless sapphire, cubic zirconia, diamond, and moissanite. And you can see the differences side by side on the different, on how it handles the light. So the different brilliance or the sparkle that comes off of it. I just want to point out some areas that I'm going to be talking about, which is in the middle of the gemstone, and that is called the girdle. And the girdle separates the top from the bottom of the gemstone. And then I'm also going to be talking about the facets. Now, the facets are the triangular and diamond-shaped flat surfaces that are polished to create that round, brilliant cut. So I just wanted to tell you some terminology before we get into this talk. So let's first talk about the natural simulants, which are colorless topaz, rock crystal quartz, and colorless sapphire. So natural gemstones, they're made in nature, so the cut won't always be perfect. And since they don't have that much brilliance, that much white light coming off of it, scintillation, which is the sparkle, or dispersion, which is that rainbow color, that light breaking up into that rainbow color, since those optical properties are really lacking in these particular natural gemstones, there is no ideal cut. So they won't always be perfect in shape. But they will try and still make it look nice, because weight really isn't an issue in this particular case. They're all very white or colorless throughout, so there won't be any tint of yellow or any other colors in it. It will just be a colorless, bright white stone. All are softer than diamond. As you know, diamond is the hardest. So they scratch easier. So you may find a lot of scratches on these stones. Those facets, like I was saying, the triangular and kite-shaped facets, they might be slightly rounded. Since it is a softer material, they can't get those crisp, clear lines. And the girdle, that middle area of the stone, could be slightly rounded also. These natural gemstones have less of a refractive index. So a refractive index is when light hits the stone, it refracts into the stone, and then for these particular stones, usually they refract out of the stone. So you get a lot of light leakage. So there is usually no visible dispersion or rainbow colors, because the light is leaking and not returning back to your eye. So you don't get those rainbow colors that you will with diamond or some other man-made simulants. These particular gemstones usually are free of inclusions, and that's just the nature of these natural gemstones, especially to the naked eye. So when you're looking at it without any magnification or anything like that, you won't see any type of inclusions. And since they have that lower hardness than diamond, it will have less of a shine or luster. So a luster is when light hits your surface and you get that really sharp reflection of light. So anything that isn't as hard, the light will be a little bit more fuzzy. It won't be as sharp or distinct. So it will look more like when it hits a piece of glass. So it won't be as sharp as it will diamond. And if you do use a loop, which I'm going to teach you the proper way next Tuesday, you will see what's called polish lines. So these gemstones are cut first and then polished. And diamonds are cut and polished at the same time, because only diamond cuts diamond. So they usually are cut and polished all at the same time. They don't need different materials to do the process. So when cutting these colorless gemstones, the polisher may not do such a great job and leave these polish lines. They're these little parallel lines, and they'll go through those facet junctions in one direction. And I'm going to show you the difference between that and diamond when we talk about diamond in a little bit. So all of these natural colorless stones, these simulants, are very popular for rings and other trendy jewelry, especially trying to look like a big diamond. So these natural stones will be set in real gold, especially if you're in a nice jewelry store or if it's a designer name. So even though it's set in gold, it won't automatically mean that it's a diamond. So if you put it on and you can see your skin through it, because remember I said that the light leaks out through the bottom. So this creates what's called a windowing effect, which means that you can see right through the stone. So if you put it on your finger, put it on your neck, and you see your skin through it, that's the first clue that it's not a diamond. Second, it's very rare to see a very large diamond because of the rarity in large sizes. You don't always see like 10, 15 carat diamonds going around, right? It's very rare to see diamonds that large. And third, you can tell from the price. So if you think about it, if you have a large colorless stone in a mounting and it's only a few $100s, is most likely not a diamond. And if it was, it would have so many eye visible inclusions that you'll see them right away, or there'll be something a little wanky with the cut, or the color could be way off. Something will be wrong. It won't be perfect and nice and colorless and flawless, right? Something's going to be off. So you want to pay attention to those factors, the see-through and the price, and how big it is. As for glass, this is a man-made material, so it'll have all of the same detections as I just talked about in the natural stones, which are scratches, rounded facets, has that glassy shine or luster, no dispersion, no rainbow colors, and it is most likely flawless. But glass could have some gas bubbles inside, which look like little round donuts. Glass is usually not set in precious metal or even silver. So it will be used for a very cheap accessory like hairpins, or maybe you have like jeans or a shirt that has little glass accents, or some sort of bedazzling on it. So they'll most likely be glued, or maybe they'll be put in prongs. And they also may have something that's called a foil backing. So this is a picture of foil backing, and it's in a shiny, opaque backing they put on these glass stones so that you won't have that see-through. You can't see all the way through it like you can on the right. So the foil back was used mostly in the Victorian period, which was the late 19th century, because that silver foil will give those pieces of glass an extra shine to it. Give it a little bit more sparkle and it won't look so dead. You'll have some sort of light return. So what is the most popular diamond simulant that you see today? The most popular diamond simulant is called cubic zirconia. So most of you have heard of cubic zirconia and that it's referenced as CZ. Okay, so this is very popular in costume and fashion jewelry, especially for travel jewelry. I'm not sure if many of you have heard of travel jewelry, but this is jewelry that is a replica of maybe what you have or something similar to what you have that you bring when you travel. And this is for safety reasons, or if you lose it, you really won't care that much because it was just a CZ replica. So a lot of people have started getting this type of jewelry for when they travel. This way they can have peace of mind. So you'll find the fashion and travel jewelry is also set in gold or silver. So that won't be a distinction of whether it's diamond or not. And it may or may not have a stamp that says CZ. They don't have to stamp it CZ if they don't want to. It's not under law or anything. So for costume, they are usually set in silver or any other type of base metal, and they'll be set similar to diamonds. So it'll be set in prongs, it'll be pave set, bezel set, any type of setting that diamonds are, CZ will too, because they really want to make it look like diamond jewelry. So how do you tell? The colorless CZs are very white. They look like the highest color of diamonds, which is D, and they have no inclusions. They'll be more perfect in shape and in symmetry. So they'll be perfectly round, or if it's a fancy shape, it'll be perfectly heart-shaped or square. So when they cut diamonds, they were cut so as to not waste any of that natural material. They wanted to make them as big as possible because it's rare and it's expensive, and you can get more money if it's a bigger diamond, right? So for diamonds, it may be out of round, or the fancy shapes may have like what's called a bulge, some extra bowing of the bottom. It may not be straight lines, but CZs, they usually model the ideal cut. And in fancy shapes, they are created to be the most aesthetically pleasing shape. So if it's a marquee, it's beautifully length to width ratio. So the most ideal shape possible. The girdle, or that middle portion that separates the top from the bottom when you look through the side, looks very waxy, like wax paper. And here's a picture of it. So you can see it really doesn't have high shine. It has like this waxy look to it. And each section, so they're faceted into sections. Each section will be the same thickness. And you won't always have that with diamond. CZs are slightly heavier. They're actually 1.6 times the weight of diamond. So the same weight on the scale, if you have the same weight on the scale, the CZ will look smaller. And if you have a loose CZ and a loose diamond of the same weight and you hold them in your hand, you can feel one slightly heavier than the other. But you need a diamond and a CZ to really compare. CZs have a high refractive index, so it has slightly more eye visible dispersion, has more of those rainbow colors refracting from the cubic zirconia than diamond does. And under certain lighting, you may see these rainbow reflections when looking through the stone that you will not see in diamond. Diamond will stay more gray or white. So a big clue when you're buying something that's made from cubic zirconia is the price. So if it's set in gold, you know, it'll probably be a couple of $100 because of gold pricing, and you do have to pay for setting and things like that. But if it's base metal, it'll be very inexpensive. At home, the best test for a layperson would be the see-through test. So what the see-through test is, you can draw a line like this, or a dot, or put it on a printed newspaper, something like that. And the stone to the right, you can see the line through it. So automatically. So that is the cubic zirconia. You can see on the left, which is a diamond, that you can't see any part of it through that stone. So that is like the simplest test that you can do at home. The second test that you can do at home is called the fog test. Now I have a diamond and a CZ, and it's hard to see on the computer, but if you give it a good breathing onto it for each one, a CZ will stay fogged for about 5 seconds, and a diamond will very quickly disappear because it's like a heat sink. so it disperses heat very quickly. So you want to just give it a full breathing, like you're breathing on a mirror, and to fog it up. And a CZ will last for quite some time to stay fogged before it clears up. And a diamond will just be like 1 to 2 seconds, something like that. So let's talk now about synthetic moissanite. So it has taken a while to warm up to, but some people are choosing synthetic moissanite as a replacement for diamond, even in engagement rings. So they have a hardness very close to diamond, which is for synthetic moissanite, which is 9.5. So very close. So they have a very high luster, almost equal to that of diamond. And since it is hard, it has very little scratches. So the color has gotten a lot better, and they're starting to make them look whiter, so very close to D color. If it does have some yellow, usually it has a little tint of green to it, so it's more of like a greenish yellow. But they have been able to make them look that D color. They also have a high refractive index, making them much more dispersive than diamond or CZ. So that visual dispersion, the rainbow color, moissanite is about 2.5 times that of diamond. So if you see on this slide, you can see how much sparkle moissanite has over diamond or cubic zirconia. And synthetic moissanite is what's called doubly refractive, where light enters the stone and then it splits into 2 refractive lights. So if you look at a certain angle, like here, if you look through the facets, you'll see this kind of blurry or doubling, like 2 parallel lines. So this also gives it much more scintillation and that sparkle that you saw all over. It's kind of a little bit over the top. And when I used to work at GIA, we used to heat the synthetic moissanites with a match, and they'll turn this bright yellow. And then when they cooled, they returned back to the original color. But I really don't recommend using any kind of fire to determine whether something is, a particular stone or not. Especially if you don't know if it's moissanite, it could be glass and like start melting or something like that. So you don't want that to happen. So they are synthetic. So they have no naturals and are usually cut perfect. Anything too perfect, you want to be a little wary of. If it's a perfect diamond, there'll be some sort of certification from a reputable lab like GIA or something else that has graded that stone independently. The pricing of synthetic moissanite is about 1/5 the price of the natural diamond, which makes it very affordable. But if you have in your mind to sell it later on, there is no resale value for that. So basically, you buy it if you enjoy it or if it's just something that you can afford right now, but you won't get anything if you wanted to sell it later on. So the main giveaway is the over-the-top dispersion, which are those rainbow colors, that scintillation, which is the light, the sparkle when you move the stone, and that doubling. So that crazy doubling that you see. Okay, so let's talk about the king of all gems. So let's talk about diamonds. So diamonds, as you know, are the hardest natural material and is a 10 on the Mohs scale. So that means that it cannot be scratched by anything else except for diamond. So this creates three main distinguishing factors from the other stones that we talked about, from those natural simulants and the synthetic simulants. So diamonds will be free of scratches unless they've been rubbing against other diamonds. You know, so if they're rubbing against other diamonds, they may have some scratches along the facet junctions where those triangular and kite-shaped facets meet. It gives its luster, which is called adamantine. So since it's so hard, it has the highest luster of all gemstones. So let me show you the slide. So if you look at these two, the top is the diamond and the bottom is the cubic zirconia. So if you catch the light reflecting off of the big facet on the top, which is called the table facet, you can see how sharp and crisp that light return is compared to the cubic zirconia, which is considered glass-like and not as sharp. So that light luster, like I was talking about, is called adamantine, and diamond does have the highest luster of any other gemstone. The only thing higher is metals. Metals will have a metallic luster, and that's the highest of anything. So you sort of want to rock and tilt your stone underneath a light source, and you'll be able to catch that big facet on the top, that table facet, and you can notice how sharp your light reflection is. So diamonds can only be polished by diamond, and it has what is called directional hardness. So each facet is polished one at a time in a different direction. So if a cutter, let me find the slide. So if a cutter leaves some polish lines on your facet, like on the top left there, it will only be confined to that facet. It won't go through the facets like in those natural gemstones I was talking about earlier. Also, a cutter may also put what's called an extra facet anywhere on the stone, and this is a facet that doesn't belong. So usually they want to place the facets very symmetrically to make this patterned shape, but they sometimes may put an extra facet to improve the clarity. So there may have been an inclusion that was close to the surface, and they wanted to remove it to make the clarity a little bit higher. So they won't do that with a cubic zirconia or any other simulant because clarity isn't an issue. So the difference between, say, a VVS clarity and a VS clarity in a diamond is thousands of dollars. And the difference between an excellent symmetry and a very good symmetry is really not as drastic. So you're only changing the symmetry a little bit. So some other things to look for is the girdle of the diamond. So you're holding your diamond in profile or from the side. And like I said, it's that line that splits the top and the bottom. So that can have what's called a sugary or rough girdle. So it'll kind of look like granulated sugar or really white around that edge. Or it can be faceted. And sometimes if it was sent to a lab, it can have the GIA or whatever lab inscription inscribed on the girdle. So a CZ, like I showed you before, will never have a sugary or unpolished girdle, and diamonds will never have a waxy appearance. It would always be like a sharp faceting or that sugary texture. Also, CZs won't have a lab inscription that is laser engraved on them. So since diamonds are part of nature, they have a rough skin. And diamond cutters might leave some of this skin to show that they got the most weight from that rough diamond. So this rough skin that they leave on is called a natural. So these naturals you will usually see around the girdle, and it might be in one spot, or it could be in up to 4 spots. So every 90 degrees, because we said before that diamonds are cubic, so they're square. And they usually in these octahedron or double pyramid shapes. So you'll have a natural every 90 degrees. And this is what a natural looks like on your girdle. It has these lines in it, or it could have these triangles in it. The bottom shows an extra facet by the girdle. You can also have a girdle that's wavy or thinner in some areas and thicker in some areas. When you have something that's synthetic or you have a cubic zirconia, it will be very uniform. So it will be equal in shape. So that's really something you want to look for also. So the girdle can tell you a lot about your stone. So it's a good area to look at to determine. So a diamond may not be perfectly round or perfectly shaped in fancy styles. So this is especially true for older cuts, like old European or old mine cuts. So maybe you were looking around your house and you found something that your grandmother left you or something, and it has these older styles. So old mine cuts will look kind of cushion shaped, and they will not be anywhere close to the ideal cut that we're used to seeing now, because cut has really evolved, and it's a really big issue today. Everybody wants excellent symmetry, excellent polish, excellent cut. They all want ideal cut or hearts and arrows. And hearts and arrows is an optical pattern that you can only get with diamond. So diamond has the only optics to show that kind of pattern from the top, and then from the arrows from the top, and then the hearts from the bottom. Unless your diamond is D color, diamonds will have a tint of yellow or maybe brown or gray. So it will always have a little bit of tint. D is the only color that would be really, really colorless. And then each grade after will have a tint of any of these colors. Most have natural inclusions, which can be black or white, colorless, yellow, red, or green. So these are the colors of the inclusions that can be inside the diamond, because diamonds were formed in the mantle of the earth, which is 75 to 100 miles from the surface, deep in the earth's center. So it was formed in lava, and only certain things can be created in these kind of conditions. Yellow is from if it has a yellow diamond crystal growing inside. Red can be garnet, because garnet is created there. And green can be green dioxide. So these are just trace elements that have been trapped while the crystal has been growing. For diamonds, 25 to 30% fluoresce, and they fluoresce yellow, white, or blue. And they can have different strengths of fluorescence, from very faint all the way up to extreme, up to very strong. So the other stones we talked about will not fluoresce, and CZs will be more of a greenish yellow. And lastly, diamonds do chip. Okay, so maybe they're the hardest and they don't scratch very easily, but they do chip, and they can chip. And if they do, inside that chip, it will have a step-like pattern. So remember I said it's a cubic crystal structure. So it will be like stairs. So step-like pattern inside that chipped area. And the other colorless stones, the natural gemstones and the synthetics, will have more of a rounded pattern, which is called conchoidal. So it's a round-like pattern, like chipped glass. So it'll look exactly like chipped glass. So I've seen that there is a test with water, but this really doesn't work since all of these simulants are heavier than water, and diamond is heavier than the natural simulants except for sapphire, and that will sink. And CZ is heavier than diamond, so that will sink too. So there's really no there's no determination of, you know, whether it's a CZ or another simulant, because they're going to sink anyway. So I wouldn't really recommend this test. I also wouldn't recommend any destructive tests like sandpaper or lighting the stone with fire and dropping it into cold water. Yes, diamond is a heat sink or disperses heat very quickly. You know, from that fog test, it disappears very quickly. And a lot of diamond that isn't used in the jewelry is used as heat sinks for other industries. For other industries, they use it to disperse that heat. So you really don't want to do something that's destructive, because, you know, then you can break something that may be valuable. And going from an extreme hot to extreme cold, you may have a treated diamond that you don't know about, or it could have some sort of inclusion. So you may shatter your diamond, even though it can withstand a lot of heat. You don't want to go from one extreme to the other. So the first and easiest test to do at home is that read-through test. So that's this one, where you just draw a line, draw a dot, put your stone on, and you can see the line or dot through your stone. For a CZ, for a diamond, you cannot. So, of course, you're going to want to thoroughly clean your stones before you do any tests, because, as I said in the other live about cleaning, any kind of dirt or any kind of oils will really change the optical properties or the visual properties of your stone. So you want to start off with a clean slate before you do any tests. The other one is that fog where you breathe onto your stone, and the CZ will last for up to 5 or more seconds. So really give it a really big huff to it and warm it up. So these will be the fastest and most reliable tests. And if you find something at home while you're cleaning up, remember first to clean them thoroughly. And you want to use an overhead light. And if you have something you know is a diamond, so maybe you have a diamond ring that you already know is a diamond, you can use that to compare. So you use that overhead light, and you want to catch the light onto one of those facets, usually the big table facet, and you want to look at the reflection of that luster coming off, and you can compare the two. You want to look at those facet junctions. So if it has these type of facet junctions that are slightly rounded, then that would be either a cubic zirconia or some sort of softer material. You also want to look around the girdle, so hold it on the side. And if you have a light overhead, you can also use a magnifying glass and look for any inclusions from the top. Then look around the girdle for naturals or extra facets. Maybe there's an inscription from a lab. And if it's frosted, if it has that sugary appearance, or has sharp facets, that's all signs of diamond. So of course, the best and easiest thing to do is to bring it to an expert. So if you have any questions or need help, feel free to contact me, no problem. And I also want to remind you all to grab your free guide on the 7 revealing secrets about selling your jewelry, because right now you don't want to do anything that's rash or anything out of emotion. You want to keep your jewelry, and this guide will give you all the secrets you need to know before you do something like selling your jewelry. So I want to thank you all for watching, and don't forget, we're going to be having another live on Thursday, and I would love if you all can catch it. And I'll be talking about carat weight, and does size really matter, and the different shapes and different types of faceting. So have a great day and enjoy the beautiful weather we're having. See you on Thursday.